Hello, I am Ernest Chrappah. I'm the Acting Director of the DC Department of Buildings. I just finished a Fireside chat with Harmen van Sprang, co-founder of Sharing Cities Alliance, and I want to share this resource with my colleagues as well. The district government is a member of this organization, Sharing Cities Alliance, and what they do is they help leaders across the executive branch and at different levels of an organization to understand what other cities are doing in terms of tackling complex challenges. What are the lessons learned? What are some of the tools? And also they connect leaders through seminars, webinars, and other toolkits to share ideas in a safe manner to figure out what works best for cities. As a district government agency leader and also as someone who's implemented some of their toolkits, I find this to be a valuable resource, and I would encourage my colleagues to take advantage of it so that we can all work together in making cities a better place. Thank you.
Hi, and welcome to this Fireside chat. My name is Harmen van Sprang from the Sharing Cities Alliance, and I'm with here today with Ernest Chrappah, the Director of the Department of Buildings of the DC government. Very much welcome to you.
Thank you for having me.
Shall we dive right in?
Yes, let's get into it.
Cool. I mean, you've been in the private sector before, but already you've been in different departments in the DC government for years. I mean, what number of years?
I think it's about 12 years now.
Okay, wow. And I think you've seen transformations and also led transformations in different areas, real estate and construction and of course transportation. So what made you stick around for, let's say, so many years in DC government, and what did you see there?
That's a good question. When I think of my time in DC government, really it comes down to why public service in the first place. And it's been about improving the lives of people and leveraging disruptive or new or emerging technologies to make things better and being able to do that at scale. DC government has that platform. And especially over the last 5-6 years, I think under the leadership of Mayor Bowser, she's really provided me the opportunity to blossom as a leader, build teams, and deliver results for DC residents and businesses. So it's been very gratifying to be in a position where you can help a lot of people based on programs, initiatives, and fresh ideas, really.
Mm-hmm. You're now, of course, the Director of the Department of Buildings. You started, of course, in a different field. And maybe why did you make those transformations? I mean, you led them within the departments, but it's also transformational for yourself, I would assume, being there for those many years and also in those different fields. Did it start with the one that most fitted you at the time, or why? And did it start the way that it started? If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I guess that's life.
But was there? Let me make it more clear. Was there a relationship or a sort of logical order from your job or your occupation within the private sector before you started here in DC government?
Not really.
Okay.
If I look back, I have to think for a second. No, because before leaving the private sector for the public sector, specifically DC government, I was in consulting, and a friend of mine told me about an opportunity in district government where the idea was we would manage projects like a portfolio of stocks. And the projects that did well, you invest more into it. The projects that were not doing well, you just kill those projects. It was a fresh idea, interesting. I had not even heard of the district government. I knew about the federal government and I knew about international governments. But district government, no, it was very foreign to me. But I was attracted to this idea of doing something new and being able to help at scale. So I came into district government from a technology track. I was a portfolio manager, overseeing a whole bunch of projects under different government agencies. And it went really well. And I said, okay, I mean, the public sector is not what you think it is. Once you get in on the inside, you realize that they're an incredible group of people that's driven by a single commitment to help. So it forces you really to think about how to solve problems using a wide toolkit, whether it's finance, whether it's HR, whether it's like marketing, whether it's tech, whether it's community relations. You have to tap into all those skills to be able to be effective. And I really enjoyed that. And along the path, I got opportunities to work in different agencies, almost every 2 years or 18 months. So I was constantly on the move and taking on new challenges, and I found out to be very rewarding. And so that's been sort of like my path, and why I stayed in public sector for a while.
Cool. Impressive, I think. I mean, I know you a little for some years now. And I know you want to get your hands dirty, and you want to really have a challenge at hand, which I think is not something you see all the time within city governments. You know, I, as you know, work with cities around the world, and yeah, I think having a leader that really accompanies the transformations that you did is really beneficial to a city, and I think an example also for other cities. And if we look at other cities, you know, I'm from Amsterdam. We also work with cities all the way to Singapore, for example, and everything in between. You already, I think, touched some of the lessons learned maybe, but are there a few that you could also expand and maybe get other city leaders inspired by what you learned?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Not wanting to raise it in the bar here, but, you know. What did you see, and what do you think, is valuable maybe in whatever city or country around the world that you have seen?
I have to think about that for a second because I don't want to sound too wonkish, particularly since...
I know you are.
Cities have complex challenges,
Yeah.
whether it's decaying infrastructure, affordable housing, crime, affordability in general, and also dealing with the demands of constituents that exist in every major city. And now, given the state of the economy, cities have an opportunity to redefine and reimagine themselves. So there's an imperative for transformation. City leaders cannot ignore it. They don't have a choice. So they either disrupt themselves or they'll be disrupted by another factor.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that you are capable of somehow, at least it's what I see.
Yeah.
But how do you do this, disrupting yourself? Or how did you do that?
Yeah. One, at least from my journey through transportation, real estate construction, health and human services, is to seek out information as far as trends that are happening or forces that are shaping the environment we are in. So today, we know things that are shaping our environment include artificial intelligence, machine learning, youth. We also know that high office space vacancies are also driving the interest rates. So if you look at all these factors, you got to ask yourself, okay, what is going to be my strategy? Am I going to be an early adopter of change, or I would just go with the momentum of change? People have to make these decisions. From my experience, being an early adopter is always helpful because you fail fast, or you figure out what could work, and then you build partnerships and coalitions, and you share your lessons learned with other cities so that you can only get better over time. That is what I would put out as sort of like things that cities should be thinking about. Disrupt yourself rather than wait to be disrupted, whether it's for some macroeconomic reason or some strategic shift that is happening around you.
And do you sometimes come in a position that it's hard because maybe not everybody has that character within city government? So does it also collide sometimes, or do people know at one point that you are this more innovator type, the one who puts himself well, in a place that not everybody would do so? Is that something that you earn, or how does that go? How do people react within city government on your
I think
position?
one, recognizing my leadership style, so that I know the pluses and the minuses. I am a transformational leader, so I don't look for just day-to-day transactions. I look for improvement of systems as a whole. So recognizing that gives me a sense of self-awareness. And it also makes sure that I surround myself with people who can balance me out so that collectively we can make better decisions. Another thing I will add is, again, having an incredible leader who inspires you, like Mio Bowser, is something that I found particularly helpful in the last few years. The leadership positions I've taken on, at least at an agency head level, is been under her administration. I've worked under 2 different mayors before also, but the inspirational leadership, I think, is important. Recognizing the type of leader that you are, whether you're a transformational leader or some other type of leader, is also important. And committing yourself to a greater purpose, not knowing that success will be guaranteed. You learn a lot about yourself and humanity, and you make some mistakes along the way, but it makes you humble. And when you deliver the results, it's much sweeter.
If we look at cities in general, I already made the connection maybe once before, but if you look at the future of cities, what do you see? You already mentioned things like AI and machine learning, but those are tech. There are, of course, other fields that are also maybe climate change. You know, it depends, of course, on your agenda, but it's also there, I think, in many cases. But in general, what do you see as the future of cities? Which is a broad question, I know we can.
Yeah, we can bring that. There are a few things I see in cities, because cities have always been the center of economic life, economic mobility, freedom, justice, clash of movements and ideas. So that core tenet about cities is not going to change, whether it's a city here or a city in Mars. Like, it will always be as a hub. When I look at cities across the world, I see cities being more greener, more environmentally friendly, whether it's from the built environment, or it's from policies, or it's from the demands of, like, citizens. I see that. I also see cities as being like a source for immersive experiences. And I'm not talking about just like virtual reality, augmented reality, but a place where people go to feel something different. Whether it's like a music concert, it's a cultural institution, a way to like collaborate. You go to big cities or city centers to feel something different inside you. So I see that as part of the city of futures. I also see shrinking of economic gaps in cities. While cities are generally expensive, there will be high wage opportunities in cities just because of the challenges we have that will also force some transformation. So I will bet on cities. It's not for everyone, but if I look at the quality of education you can get in a city, the environment, the opportunities, I think the future of cities is bright. Granted, we are in like a very challenging situation now, but cities always come back. From think of ancient Rome to even like the Songhai Empire to now Washington D.C. There will always be a charm about cities.
Talking about the future, you're stepping down.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot to say about that maybe, but from my position, who am I to say, but I also respect it. I mean, maybe even if it's from afar, I would have loved to see you for many more years in maybe the roles that you are taking, but I think it's also, there's a future also outside of city government. I see that, and that is something that you're moving towards too. So could you maybe expand a bit about either your decision to do so or otherwise your plans for the future? What do you see there?
I've been in city government and I came from the private sector to help make the lives of residents and business owners better. And I think I've been successful at that. I've also learned a lot about the world in general and the role that cities play, and also the role that private sector participants play. One thing that has stuck with me throughout my journey in city government is that there's almost always a private sector organization or a nonprofit that has a solution that could help the city and its residents. But sometimes it's very difficult for private sector organizations or nonprofits to navigate cities, the municipality, and it is also difficult for government leaders to find those solutions out there. So I would like to explore what bridging that gulf would look like, just based off my own experiences, tap into private and nonprofit solutions to help city government, and also just seeing the opportunity. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think there is an opportunity to rediscover myself or transform for the next phase of my life. I don't know what exactly that is going to look like, but I believe in faith and I believe in humanity. And I just want to have a moment where I can reset, decompress, and prepare for the next challenge. Because if there's one thing I know, I'm motivated by challenges. So yes, it's a moment to just reflect and figure out the next challenge and whether I'm up for it or not. But I think I'll be up for it, whatever that is.
Yeah. I'm already so excited to learn more about that. But I know you're just seeing this as sort of, let's see, a green field.
Yes.
And yeah, I can assume that it also does something to you personally, because that's also true, of course. I mean, you're a leader, but you're also you're a dad, you're a husband, you're part of a community, and apparently maybe you just maybe even don't know right now, but you're maybe moving to the private sector again. But we have to see. And
yeah, it's all about discovery. It's all about embracing change. I've been a change agent, and now I'm embracing change even when it is not clear.
Yeah.
That journey, I think, would even give me fresh ideas on how to improve cities, really. But I have to remove myself from the process first, and then I can stay present, and then my brain will go to work.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it will. Looking at cities, would it be possible that you will continue to work with cities in the broader sense also after you stepping down? So, of course, you're now within government, but it could very well be that within a new role, and you don't know yet, but you will continue to somehow be part of the movement of cities.
Oh, no doubt.
Right?
Cities
Yeah.
are part of like my life.
Yeah.
And I live here. My kids go to school in the city. We've made District of Columbia our home. I'm from Ghana. So the city has given me a lot, and I'll continue giving back. And I'll continue dialing into the issues and providing like my point of view. It will just be from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm looking forward to. If I think of even the work we do at the Department of Buildings, which is all about building safety, we challenge ourselves to think of how do we make the environment safer through inspections or permitting or code enforcement. How do we empower our employees so that they seek knowledge and they can use that knowledge to perform better, so that they find more meaning in their work? How do we prioritize team building so that we can support each other? Somebody who's right-sided or left-sided from a brain perspective, or somebody who's more analytical, very creative, like bringing people together, exploring those sort of like intersections, I think is incredibly challenging, but also very rewarding when you think of it in terms of like, the life of a city. So there's just a lot to explore there.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about what that would look like.
Yeah, because you mentioned the word intersection, but we talk about private sector, public sector, and we make this distinction. But maybe, once you've been in both, it will be much more of a blend, I can see. So, even if you would go and leave the public sector for now, probably with your DNA and the way that you think and the way that you've dedicated many years of your life to the city government. I think it will be a blend always. You will have this heart for in this case DC. And so maybe we shouldn't think too much in those distinctions of public and private. You'll stick around here, and you'll be working on the future.
Totally. The distinctions are for conversational purposes or for ease of frameworks. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if I'm walking down the street or you're walking down the street, nobody cares whether you work for a private sector organization or public sector organization. You are all part of the ecosystem of the city. Yeah. And even people who don't even live in the city, who commute in here. It's
like
all
me today.
about, yes, like you, who actually traveled by plane in here, right? Yeah. It's all about what is buzzing, what is happening. And cities are the epicenter of buzz. So there's just this, I don't know how else to describe it, but cities are magical.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it's just like walking up here today and having a chat with a lady who was helping school children across the street, to help them across the street safely. And we had a wonderful conversation. And, that taps into her role, what she does there, and that she's so proud of, being born here and living here. And I was jokingly saying, okay, but wouldn't you want to have the same job and come to Amsterdam? No way. I love it here. So, and smiling, and this whole conversation makes it so wonderful, at least for me, maybe also for her, because she gets a different view while she's just here on the street.
Yeah, because you don't know what...
And that's what's happening in the city, It's just on the corner of the street.
Serendipity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's it,
You come across it, and then sometimes there's magic, and sometimes it's just routine.
Yeah.
Whether I recall last summer, 2 summers ago, actually, come to think about it, it's 3 summers ago. We had
this is a bit of what the pandemic did, right?
Yes.
Not only with you.
I have the
we
years.
get this time warp.
Time
I don't know.
Lapse. And I'm like, okay, let me do the math. 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I went to the pool with my family. We hanging out, and some guy comes to talk to me. Later on, I find out that he's actually an ANC commissioner in our neighborhood, and we had common interest, Is that what I expected going to a pool? No. I was just going there, hang out with the kids, and I've stayed in touch with him. Obviously, our work intersects because of his role, but also getting to understand who people are outside of work is something that I've also enjoyed when I've had the opportunity to interact with people on that level.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's, me personally, the serendipity factor is fascinating in many cases in life, but also in the city. And that's also what I personally hope, that if we see much more people also going into virtual worlds, etc., and we've also been talking about it and working on that. But I think especially this intersection between the virtual and physical world is interesting. And I really hope that we will have the possibility continuously also in this, let's say, digital decade, that will have that serendipity in place, and it will not all be organized behavior that we will have as citizens or residents through digital platforms. So let's see to it and hope that people will,
we have
come to the streets.
We have the opportunity to shape that, though, because if you think of these digital or virtual experiences, who is leading their charge?
Yeah, exactly.
It's individuals, right? Yeah. And so my algorithms, individuals design those algorithms. So if I'm creating a virtual world, of course, I've been influenced by the cherry blossoms. So I like other people to experience the cherry blossom. I've been influenced by the federal monuments or the local monuments, or even on a more hyper-local level, the carry out that is not far from where I live. So when I'm creating a virtual experience, I would like to give people a window into that world. So that if they happen to be somewhere physical, they can also sort of transport themselves to a digital world, and vice versa, just go back and forth. That is the promise, right? But there are also some perils associated with it. And we have to build safe environments so that people with ideas that are not necessarily well refined can have a space where they can make them better. A space where children can also, experience these virtual worlds safely without being harassed. A space where, creators can also get rewarded for their intellectual property. So there's a lot at play, but there's no better time to be involved in shaping this future of cities physically and virtually than now.
Yeah.
I just don't see. I mean, I've not lived for 100 years.
You would always think, why is he leaving?
But there's just that fascination that we can take on and embody our values in those virtual spaces.
Yeah. Taking a little step back before you leave, if we look at the public sector, what elements would you see as making it possible to succeed in the public sector? Is there some tips that you would have for either colleagues or young people who want to maybe consider a career in city government? What do they have to look at? What are the things that would make you succeed in the public sector?
There are a few I can think of. One, clearly defined problems. Every city has a problem, but those problems are incredible opportunities to develop personally, professionally, regardless of your age or where you are in your career. There's a role to play. So in city government, you can be in public affairs or what people say marketing type of role. You can be in pure finance, you can be in pure tech, you can be in organizational development, and you can find your calling through that channel. So for every problem, there's an opportunity. So for me, I always say, okay, let's define the problem. Are we done yet? Okay, now here is the opportunity. So having the ability to make that shift from a problem to an opportunity, I think is critical. The second is teamwork. Governments in general are large, and every large organization, whether in government or the private sector, comes with bureaucracy, red tape. The way you are able to cut those red tape is not based off your individual talent alone. It's by having an army or a network of people who can point out your blind spots, are also equally committed to making things better. So you have to spend the time in building relationships on a very personal level. So that people get to understand you, you get to understand people. I'll say that is number two, not in terms of ranking, but factors. Yeah. And then 3 is taking risks. Because to deliver services to 700,000 residents and over 100,000 businesses each and every day, you got to take some risk to have some outsized rewards. If you are just going to stay with the status quo, you shouldn't be doing what you are doing, right? The commitment to people and the needs of people should just trump everything else. So it takes an incredible amount of sacrifice, and it takes a personal toll, but there's joy in delivering for people. So that's the third thing I'll say. And the last thing I'll say is look at our cities, so that if they are doing something better, don't hesitate. Copy it and adapt it for your environment. And that's the role for organizations that I've seen, whether it's the Sharing Cities Alliance, is a Mayor's Conference or trade groups. There's just a ton of information out. Figure out what others are doing and say, how do I copy it or how do I adapt this? You'll be successful if you follow those 4 things.
Wonderful. Is there any final thought, or do you think this is the perfect ending of this fireside chat with you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if there's a final thought because there's always going to be another chapter.
Absolutely.
There's always going to be another chapter.
What do you wish for your children, and therefore, of course, for the next generation? I know that's a big question too, but let's end with also a big question then. But if you look at, let's say, 2030, which always looks like far away, but it's within 6.5 years or something. So what do you see for them, and what do you wish for them, or what kind of city do you want DC to be in a few years' time, even without you in office?
Yeah. I would like for them to be very proud of their new hometown, whatever that is, whether it's based off experiences they had when they were kids, or experiences they've had over the years, but I want it to be something special about the city that stays with them so that it becomes a point of inspiration, a point of joy, something they can tap into to take on greater challenges. So whatever shape and form that takes, I'll be very happy if it turns out that way.
Well, I assume they have your DNA, so I think they will be fine, and I think they're already proud girls. I would be if you would be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I wish to continue our relationship in any way that we can to work on cities, both here locally in DC as around the world.
Thank you for everything that you've helped DC with. I recall you sharing best practices on even like the sharing economy, the circular economy, what cities are doing with respect to like legislation, regulation. And as an implementer of those sort of regulations, I can't overemphasize how helpful it is to know, okay, this is what this city did, this is what came out of it, or here is even like sample legislation if you want to work on something similar. Yeah. So it's helped DC a lot in reinventing the wheel and also assessing what we will do differently. But there's always that opportunity. You see people doing something, you said, okay, I got this, but I'm going to go in a different direction. Yeah. So that's been incredibly valuable, and I thank you for all the work you've done in bringing other cities to the table so we can share ideas in a safe space as well. I can't say a lot about how thankful I am for that.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.